Welcome back. I'm joined next by Governor Evers. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's good to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Naomi.
So we're here to talk about two of the biggest items out of the budget that you signed this week. And I want to get first to tax cuts. We're going to get to education funding in just a bit. You vetoed 2 tax cuts for the top 2 tax brackets, or in other words, any family making more than $36,000 in Wisconsin. I want to read you a quote from Assembly Speaker Robin Vos this week responding to those cuts. Quote, "He lied to the people of Wisconsin during the campaign last year. He lied to us during the negotiating process." Your response to that?
It's kind of breathtaking, but to be honest with you, I never lied about anything. This is a middle-class tax cut that we've had cuts to middle-class tax cuts for $1.5 billion over the last 4 years, and this one includes with the vetoes, $175 million tax cut. So, and most of it is to the middle class. And so, no, that I don't believe I lied. In fact, I think I just did exactly what I promised. The third category goes up to $400,000, and that is to me, that's a little bit wealthier than middle class. And so I vetoed the two on the higher end, and we came back with a tax cut that is reasonable, and it's $175 million. Most of it is for middle class folks, and frankly, everybody is getting a tax cut out of what I vetoed, or what I vetoed into law.
A little bit later in the show, we're going to be hearing from the Budget Committee Chair, Republican Mark Bourne, and he told our political reporter specifically, and we've heard this also from Speaker Vos, they keep saying that you didn't hold up to what you agreed to behind closed doors with negotiations with Republican leaders. Where's that coming from?
I'm not sure. I mean, exactly what the work we've done behind closed doors. We did exactly. Our work behind closed doors had to do with shared revenue. It had to do with shared revenue. It did not have to do with income tax. And so the shared revenue piece obviously took into account issues around schools and other things. But at the end of the day, whatever we did and said behind closed doors, we did. I don't remember Representative Bourne being part of any closed door opportunities, so I can't answer for what he's saying. But the people I worked with behind closed doors, everything that we agreed to there, we did.
Understandable. Speaker Vos is saying that he wants to bring at least, he's going to try to bring these tax cuts back to the floor later this session, whether that's for the 3rd or the 4th. Would you back any form now of tax cut, say just for that 3rd bracket, that broadest bracket?
Well, if we could work something out and look at that, that's fine. I understand the broadness of that area is something I could not deal with with a veto. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is it has to be a middle class tax cut. It can't be everything for the wealthy folks in the state of Wisconsin. Simple as that. So if they can come back with something different that we can agree to, let's have it. But at the end of the day, if it's just to do what they put in the budget, I'll veto that again.
Do you think that there's any vulnerable Democrats on the Assembly floor whom perhaps Speaker Vos could persuade to override your budget vetoes?
No, no way.
You're confident in your caucus?
Yes.
All right. Let's move to education funding. I have a lot of questions about this partial veto, right? You used a very creative method to strike out numbers to create education funding for 400 years. Talk me through where you even find the ability in a budget document to do that. Do you tell your attorneys, hey, I want to find a place for education funding, just tell me how to do it? Walk me through the behind the scenes of how that comes to be.
Well, it's not a lot of cloak and dagger going on there, that's for sure. But of course, we look at ways to improve a budget, whether it's in the area of schools or other things, by making creative vetoes or just regular vetoes. partial vetoes. And so we go through it with a very fine tooth and comb, and we have lots of smart people in the budget office and elsewhere that have done this. And so, yes, it was clear that we had an opportunity here, one that has been used by all sorts of governors in the past. I'm sure they have the same, Scott Walker used the same thing for 1,000 years. I think he had one that did just the opposite of what I did. But at the end of the day, that's a governor's prerogative, and I'm proud to be able to use that type of veto in order to help give some certainty to our schools.
And you specifically use that type of veto to target education funding, which everyone knows as a former state superintendent is one of your biggest priorities in the state. Did you consider that type of veto for any other issue?
Sure, we looked at all of them, but that's the one that stood out as to make the most progress.
Do you expect legal challenges? I know Republicans are basically crying foul, and you just pointed out both governors of both parties have used these types of vetoes. But Republicans say, "Hey, this isn't fair." They're threatening lawsuits. Do you foresee this holding up in court?
Of course, it's been held up before. I can't believe that suddenly it's going to change. So yes, I think it'll hold up in court. We need to move on. I mean, the veto is a veto, and that's how it works in the state of Wisconsin. And I utilized something that my predecessors did, and with great happiness, I was able to provide some certainty for our schools going forward.
Are there any, we've talked a lot about the tax cuts, about education funding. Are there any things going kind of under the radar that you'd like to bring more attention to out of the budget you signed?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the reason, a lot of people have said, oh my God, Tony, you got to veto this budget. Well, the bottom line is there's all sorts of, let's just start with shared revenue. That is a major issue for everybody in the state of Wisconsin. And we got that solved. We put together a group. A lot of it was done behind closed doors with the leaders. I understand that. And they participated in that fully. But we had a huge win there. We have a huge win around affordable housing for the first time ever, money for PFAS and PFAS mitigation. And so there's lots of good pieces. That's the reason I signed this budget rather than veto it and just throw these things away. We have more money for roads and bridges, fixing our roads. That's obviously something that I continue to believe that we have to have adequate money to do that. All those things were in a good place, and so that's why I did not veto that budget to start over, because we would not be where we are now.
Governor, you've been generous with your time. I do have one last question for you. This is going to come a little bit out of left wing. Taylor Swift dropped an album this morning. Have you listened to it yet?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Taylor Swift dropped an album this morning. We're talking Friday morning. Have you listened to it yet?
I'm sorry, I have not. No. Maybe I'll find some time tonight to do that.
Disappointing Swifties everywhere. Governor, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Naomi. Have a good one.
You too. All right, coming up next, we're talking to Representative Mark Bourne just after the break.